And welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. Your host, Paul Vender. Tonight's topic is on the desert tortoise, an animal that is native to the Mojave Desert and locally in the Indian Wells Valley. My guest is Bob Parker. Bob, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization you represent.
Yeah, I'm Bob Parker with the Ridgecrest chapter of the California Turtle and Tortoise Club. We have chapters all over the state, mostly in Southern California. And a group of us started up our local chapter in 2009, and so we've been doing this ever since then.
Right, and I think about growing up in the valley back in the, I guess it'd be the early 70s.
Yeah.
There was a junior high school teacher, I can't remember his name, Robinson or Robertson, and he would give a class during summer school that was just really covered all of the desert animals. Yeah. And I just kind of remember that as kind of being the cornerstone of growing up in the valley and learning about our desert wildlife. Mm-hmm. But this organization has just started in 2009. That's fairly recent.
Our chapter, it's a statewide organization. They started over in the 60s, so they've been going on quite a while. And but Ridgecrest lacked a chapter, and we have tortoises all around us, so we felt, oh, well, let's start a chapter up here. And so we did.
And I think being local, I always thought, well, the tortoise is kind of our thing, but even some of the ladies down in the San Fernando Valley, I was talking to a lady last week, and she says, well, I have to go to this tortoise meeting. And I said, okay, even down in Riverside and some of those areas, you're still having active membership with the tortoises. Now, we obviously have our desert tortoise. Are there other turtles and tortoises that you're involved with, or is it strictly that one?
We deal, well, the club, we deal with captive tortoises locally, and we deal with desert tortoises, primarily the main one, but we also deal with Russian tortoises, sulcata tortoises, and some others.
All right, I see you brought a couple guests in here. We got a little bin with some of the tortoises. Did you want to introduce those to us?
I can show one. This one I didn't mention. This is called a leopard tortoise from Africa. He's quite young. He'll get up to 60 pounds, but exotic from Africa.
Well, I think of a local tortoise maybe being 12 to 14 inches. How long would that get to be 60 pounds?
He would probably be
a little bit bigger.
18 inches, yes.
Wow. Now, are those pretty much just bought and sold by the hobbyists?
The exotics are bought and sold. Our native tortoises, it's illegal to sell or buy them, so our club adopts them. It's easy to adopt a desert tortoise. We have plenty that are available, and we have websites and ways to do it. It's free. So.
Right, and then you also have an education component. As you're out in the community telling people about what you're doing. Why don't you give me an example? Like, what's some of the last few times you've had a chance to go out and talk with the community?
We have programs in the schools. We have a Sand Canyon environmental education program, and part of that we talk about reptiles of this area, and we'll bring some tortoises, and we'll talk about natural history and things like that, and we do quite a bit, you know.
So you'll actually have people go right into the classroom and have like a 30-minute, 45-minute talk, or?
Yes, as part of, we call it SEEP, the Sand Canyon Environmental Education Program. We, all the fourth graders in the Indian Wells Valley go through it basically, and as part of that, we do a program on reptiles, and so, we go to the classroom, and the program it lasts a couple of hours, but the kids see all sorts of different things that are taking place. They learn about plants and mammals and other things. So.
Right, I recall one of the talks that I went to up in Vacaville a couple months ago. A gentleman was talking about being a biologist in the 1960s, and you either talked about the plants or the animals, but you didn't talk about the two together.
Oh, yes.
And so with our desert tortoise, how important are the plants to their habitat?
The plants are, the desert tortoise, he's an herbivore, vegetarian. He eats primarily plants, and so in a year like this year, when it rained a lot in the spring and there was excellent wildflowers, so the tortoises were pretty happy this year. And then we had this recent rain, and so they were able to get some more food or more water. And so the plants are critical. If there's no plants for a couple of years, you'll not have any tortoises, even though they're very adapted to living in our desert. They can handle droughts, to some extent, and so they come back pretty well from a drought.
Right, and I was actually surprised because growing up here, I can't really recall in my childhood seeing a tortoise just out in the desert when I'd be running around. But this year, coming down right during that time when the wildflowers were all out, coming down from 178 from Kern Valley to the 14T, I saw a desert tortoise right there on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And then just recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, going to Trona, on Trona Road, there was one right on the road. Now, I had gotten out and moved the tortoise off the road so it wouldn't get hit, and somebody else had said, hey, you're not allowed to touch a tortoise at all. So what was the right thing to do on that?
We've talked to biologists with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and they it's a threatened species, so they would like to save its life if that means moving it off the road safely. There's ways to move it off the road. Just you're very careful. You hold the tortoise low, low to the ground, and if it's walking in one direction, if he's going, right to left, you set him off the road in that same direction because you want him to keep going. If you put him back where he was coming from, he'll turn right around and come back on the road. So, but
a little bit of common sense there.
Yeah.
And I think on this one, I was driving towards Strona, so it was actually coming in front of me, and it was pretty much right in the middle of my lane. And I went ahead and moved it off to that same side. So, without knowing, I guess I did it right. But the one thing I didn't really notice is keeping it kind of low. I think I just kind of picked it up, but it's probably at my knee height.
That's probably okay, as long as it's slow and not. If he thinks he's being attacked by a predator, they have a bladder that they store their water in, and other things accumulate until they'll void that to keep from being eaten by a predator. And so once they lose their water, then it's kind of tough for them to get a refill of this canteen that they have inside.
All right, we're going to go ahead and go to break. This is Ridgecrest Talk, talking about the desert tortoise, and we'll be right back after this.
Okay.
And welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk. Tonight's talk is on the desert tortoise, along with other turtles and tortoises. I'm here with Bob Parker. And Bob, we were just talking before the break about not startling or scaring a tortoise because it will actually release the water that it has stored up in an effort to get you to leave it alone.
Yes.
And so I guess that's something, if there's one big thing, if somebody's just out in the audience watching, if there's one big thing that they picked up, that would be it, is to move slow and try not to startle a tortoise if you do come across one.
Yeah, mostly if you find tortoises out in the desert, they're fine. They're doing what they do, and they don't need to be moved. It's only on highways. That's maybe the only time that they may need to be rescued or moved off the road. But
right now, how long does a tortoise typically live?
There's no real reliable records. We have some records over 100 years. Some claim that their tortoise has been alive for 115 or 16 years, I've heard, but they could live longer. It's just there's just no good records.
So it's
one of
those creatures. If you were to have one through your program, it might outlive you.
It could outlive you, if you feed it well, the right foods and the right habitat, little. It'll live a long time.
Now, are they finding that the ones in captivity are living just as long as in the desert, or longer, or shorter?
They haven't done studied it that much, but the wild ones have their own set of problems. When they're little hatchlings, there's predation's a big problem with primarily ravens and other things will get the little ones, and then in droughts, if the tortoise is in the wrong area, there's no they'll run out of food and water, and so then they'll die. But in captivity, there's another set of problems. People don't always feed them the right foods. They need a lot Well, desert plants would be perfect, but since the plants dry up in the summer, you'll have to get other plants. We provide lists of good plants for tortoises. Our club does. So, but yeah, just the right food and the right a good burrow, outside so they can have a place to go when it gets hot or cold.
Now you talk about predators, and obviously when they're very small, the raven, once they figure that out, they're pretty smart, and they're going to go after them, I guess, pretty aggressively. Are there any other predators in the area?
There's those are the primary ones. Other predators, red-tailed hawks will sometimes feed on medium-sized tortoises. They'll carry them up, drop them from heights, and crack the shell. Then they'll eat them. But hawks really, that's a lot of work for hawks. So he generally will eat other things. Those are the main predators. A big problem for tortoises are dogs, feral or dogs that run out around town. And
what about coyotes? Are those also?
Coyotes are less of a problem. There's a lot of work digging up a tortoise. So coyotes mostly go after other things. They will occasionally dig up a tortoise. It's not really common though.
I know you showed us one of the critters in there. Who else you got in there?
Well, I have this. This is a female desert tortoise. Again, we don't know how old she is. There's no really good way to tell, but she has a flat, her plastron, we call it. The undershell is flat on the back, and it has long toenails on the rear legs, and so that's a couple of ways to tell that's a female. Also,
do they typically dig with the front legs?
They dig with the front legs. Her back legs she uses to dig a hole. She'll lay eggs in there and cover it up with dirt, and so that eggs are fairly protected. If she just laid them on the surface, the predators would come along and eat them. So,
and that's pretty much a full-size female.
That's a good size female. They can be larger. I think they can get up to 14 or 15 inches, a real large one.
And to get to that adult size is what, 5 years, 10 years?
This one is, like I said, this one is about 15 years to get to to be an adult for sure. In the wild, things are a little slower. The years aren't always good years. Their growth rate is lower in the wild, can be. So it can take 30 years to get to be a big size. Then they grow. They continue to grow, but very slowly.
Now, one of the things that I was trying to look at is kind of the areas where the tortoise is native and so forth. And I noticed that Kern County kind of has a preserve set up. Where is that area generally located?
There's a desert tortoise natural area down about 5 miles north of Cal City, and it's fenced to keep out sheep and other uses, motorcycles, those things, anything that might impact the habitat, and so.
Do they have one of those special fences that has the lower section on it, or is it just like a barbed wire?
The fence was designed, it was a sheep fence, and so they left a space underneath so the tortoises could go in and out. They could go to other parts of their range. They can go east into the Rand Mountain Fremont Valley area. So they're not restricted to that area, and so when the population gets high in there, the others can move out. It was the idea, and so they're
right. They kind of self-regulate in the sense that they have a territory, and if they get too many in that area, then they're gonna.
The males are pretty aggressive. They don't like other males nearby, so they'll fight, and so the loser goes somewhere else, and so they tend to move out.
Now, and looking in the general desert area at the large, not the large, but the more popular annual events here in Ridgecrest. We just started the Petroglyph Festival, but in California City they have Tortoise Days. Have you attended that at all?
Our club has been there for a couple times. We didn't make it this year, but we were there last year and a few years.
That's usually the start of May, right?
Yeah, it's the first weekend in May, and there's a lot of things going on, and there's conflict, so we didn't make it this time.
Yeah, I know. You have those different May holidays. The Cinco de Mayo obviously is a popular one. But in clowning, we have the 1st of May, and being an ex-ringling trained clown, 1st of May was any first-year clown because that's when the circus would typically start. But that's also kind of the time when the tortoise comes out is kind of the April, May time frame, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, and then we talked about their conservation here locally, which is kind of an area that's a little bit developed between Cal City and Fremont Valley there.
Yeah.
I know they're doing some different areas in there. We also talked about the tortoise days. We're going to go ahead and take a break and come back and talk about how people can get involved. So this is Ridgecrest Talk with Paul Vanderwerf. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Oh, back with Ridgecrest Talk, your host Paul Vanderwerf. I'm actually having a great time. I'm not talking about anything with conflict. There's no disagreement, like our water shortage that we're having locally. We're talking about the desert tortoise, and the local tortoise club is not just about our local desert tortoise, but there's also some others that you have, and we've had a few that you've shown. Why don't you show us another one that you brought?
Okay. All right. This is a young Russian tortoise. He's maybe 2 or 3 years old, but he's another popular tortoise in the pet trade. He's from parts of Russia, Afghanistan, and he's like our desert tortoise. He sleeps during the winter. We call it hibernation, or brumation is the more correct term. But yeah, he'll disappear in the wintertime.
Now, what's the climate like in Russia where this would come from? Is it kind of a desert area? Or?
It's quite similar to ours. Maybe a little more moisture, but yeah, some of these get out in the wild, escape, and they do survive.
So it's not unheard of that someone will irresponsibly let one out, and then years later someone else will stumble across it.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
This other one's more. This is an African sulcata tortoise, and
I always think of everything in Africa being real big. Does this one get real large?
This one will get over 200 pounds when he gets to be an adult. He'll be very large, and he lives south of the Sahara Desert where there are hyenas and lions and things, and so he grows big very fast. So so he can survive. Yeah,
that's like the size of an adult.
Yeah, weighs as much as a man does. Yeah.
Wow.
And so he's another one that. Very adaptable, very hardy, robust guy. And
now you're saying the desert tortoise you can't buy, but ones like this, are you allowed to buy these?
This guy, yeah, you can buy him in a pet store. He would probably cost, well, a hatchling, which is a little smaller, would cost about $100.
Wow.
Some people buy them, and then they realize, and then they do the research and discover that he's going to get big. And so sometimes they let him go in the desert. And so in parts of the desert, in Arizona, Texas, parts of Southern California, there are free roaming sulcata tortoises around, big 80, 100-pounders.
The wild tortoises are about. Now we had Jake Rudnick on from the Onyx Farmers Market.
Oh, yeah.
And among the other wonderful animals that Jake has, he does have one of those large tortoises, but he said because it gets cold there in the winter that he takes it in, I think, into his garage at night where he has a heater. Are they kind of sensitive to the colder temperatures that you have in the mountains?
Up in those hills, yeah. They don't like real cold. My winter quarters for him is heated. It's an outside artificial burrow made of bricks and a roof and everything, and it's heated, so he can go in there when it gets cold.
That sounds like the VIP treatment there.
Although some people do keep them in Ridgecrest and let them hibernate. I mean, they don't hibernate. They go in their burrows and stay there for a long time. Maybe come out every a month or so and eat something and go back down. But they do survive here. So, yeah.
Now, just this past Sunday, we had an event down at the county park. We had the snake hunters. I had a representative from their group come on the TV show last year.
Oh, yeah.
And then you guys kind of partnered with them to show up and get the word out and to talk with people. And then I think there was also a dog rescue that was there also.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really great where you probably get a better turnout because people are coming for one group and then they see the other group
Yeah.
and they say, okay, let's come over and
Yeah,
check this out too.
that's fun. It's fun to meet everybody doing.
And
things,
also
yeah.
having the dog park now.
Yes.
I'd go to Colorado and I'd scratch my head. In Colorado, the dog parks are so nice; they're better than our regular parks. It's kind of like you said, you have the heater for your tortoise.
Yeah.
And coming back to Ridgecrest, not having a dog park, and now, voila, we do have a nice park there,
That's great.
right next to where you guys were set up this last Sunday.
Yeah.
When people want to get involved with your organization, with your group, what's the easiest way? How do they get a hold of you guys?
We have a website. There's a website for the club as a whole, the state organization. It's tortoise.org, and you can get on there, and it will list all the chapters. And our chapter will be in the list there, and I believe it's Ridgecrest Tortoise Club.webs.com, I think. And so you can get either way, and we have information there, and you can get forms to adopt tortoises, or just information on if you. We have lots of tortoises for adoption. So
all right, so you can just go on the web and do a
Yeah.
search, and you'll be able to see the Ridgecrest Club.
Yeah.
And then you also, do you have Facebook? Are you kind of up
we have
and current
a
on that?
Facebook site, and we have different. Yeah.
I know Facebook, for a lot of us, we're kind of still not sure how much
Yeah.
involvement we want to get with that, because it's
Yeah,
putting a lot of
yeah.
information out there that we don't necessarily want to share. But it is great for this type of club when you're trying to get the information out to the community.
Yeah.
Now, you guys have regular meetings?
We have regular meetings. We usually meet on Monday evenings, the second Monday of the month at the Grace Lutheran Church. This last one we met in the park on Sunday with some groups, the snake hunters, a good group, and then a dog and cat rescue group, and so.
All right, and
Yeah.
so during the summer, do you continue to meet all summer, or do you kind of take the summer off?
The summers are kind of slows down for the tortoises, so we kind of slow down too. We offer, sometimes we do a field trip, but generally we don't have regular meetings.
All right, now what does someone do? They come across a tortoise in their neighborhood and they want to get some help. They've heard of you guys, but they're not sure how to
Yeah.
get a hold of you. What's the easiest way to contact someone?
Probably the easiest way is just to contact the local animal shelter, animal control, and they have our number, and so they'll contact us directly. If you can go on the web and get our email and find it that way. But the animal shelter is probably the easiest way.
Now, I see you have some
Yeah.
tags. Let's take a look and see what that tag looks like. That's
Okay.
for the people that adopt a tortoise, that you put that's an individual number on the tag?
Yeah, every time we adopt a tortoise out, a desert tortoise, we issue a permit. They're free to do. Legally, every desert tortoise in California is supposed to be registered, and so we have the permits. We have the numbers. So you put the number. It's put on the back of the shell, and so if your tortoise escapes or disappears or gets lost somehow and is recovered, it has a number on it, and so we can track down the owner and we can get it back
All
to
right,
you.
so we're just about running out of time. There's
Okay.
also places in the community that we can see some of these tortoises. I know there's one out at the BLM,
Yeah.
one out at, was it Jawbone Station? A few
Yes,
other places.
uh-huh.
We're out of time. Bob, thank you so much for coming
Well,
in
yeah.
with the great
You're welcome.
tortoises of the desert. And y'all have a great night with Ridgecrest Talk. Thank you so much.
Thanks.